be here. This is amazing to be here with so much energy, so many amazing people. And yeah, thanks for making it here and attending this talk about navigating your security engineering career ladder. Let's go with that. I'm Lakshmi Sudheer. And I just want to present 11's. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not the right way of presenting, I guess. Yeah. So I just want to present 11's LinkedIn profile that we pretty much commonly see. So we have 11. Her middle name should be Strange, but hey, I couldn't come up with a better last name, so 11 Strange is her name. We see that she's been here at Netflix for about 4 years. No point for guessing whose profile I edited to add all of this information, by the way. So 11 was a security engineer on the Hawkins team for about 2.5 years. Then went on to become a senior security engineer. Then they were a principal security engineer in the Upside Down. Feels amazing, stellar. This is who I want to be when I grow up, right? But really, was it this linear? What happened behind the scenes? Behind the scenes, probably 11 started being an intern on the team, trying to do security reviews, running scans, maybe just removing some of the false positives, trying to understand how all of this works. And maybe then they found out that, you know what, bug bounty seems interesting. I've done it before during my college days. So I just want to go back and try to look at how do we do it from the company side. Maybe they did that. Around that time there were incidents, and let's say 11 was part of Swati's team at that point of time, managing incidents, and they were like, oh, you know what, the wall process is broken. So maybe let me go do the ops and process aspect of it, work on the walls. And then as they went on parental leave and took a few months off to take care of their family, their life, and what they wanted to do with their personal and we're all integrated humans with family, people, work, career, right? So work happens, life happens. So they did a ton of that. Then they switched to product management because that was interesting. So much happened behind the scenes. So all I'm trying to get to is career is not linear. I'm sure you heard during the keynote as well that it's not linear. What we see on LinkedIn is just a very tiny snapshot of what a person's career is, and we derive probably our judgment and our assumptions through the profile we see, and we're I started around the same time this person started. Now they are a principal. Why am I still senior? And we do all of these comparisons and we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes with their life. So let's restart this talk with the right title: Navigating Your Own Security Engineering Career. There is no ladder. It's just your pathways. You can call it pathways. You can call it routes. You can call it your interests. And tomorrow your security career may lead you to something else that's absolutely not security related. The options are endless. So who am I? I'm Lakshmi Sudheer, and I am currently the engineering manager at Netflix. I started out as an IC. I did development for a few years. I did a bit of education as well in my previous lives. Then moved into security. Did a little bit of everything. I guess incident response, a little bit of program management kind of work as well. Product security, incidents, a bit of incident response. Wore a lot of hats. Interviewed at a bunch of places. Got rejected. Got accepted. So done that. Been there. I'll continue to do that. Continue to grow and learn. And I love, the most important information from the slide is I love dogs and food and travel. So if you have dog wings anywhere, anytime, that's how you get me. If you want to fish me, that's the way. The agenda for today, let's talk a little bit about technical and management track. How can you assess for it? We'll go into that. What does it mean? I said there's no ladder. We still see senior, we still see principal, we still see staff, and numerous insert title, I don't know, ninja maybe, because I'm not creative. So maybe something, what are these titles? What do they exactly mean, or what do they try to mean? Let's talk about that. How could you get there, wherever you want to be again, not to any of these titles? And some maybe kind of actionable takeaways, depending on how much we action on takeaways generally. So let's maybe condos in famous words. What sparks joy? This is a question we should all reflect on and think about what things have done. Maybe just go to your calendar, look at the previous week, and see what made you happy and what brought you energy, right? That's how I started thinking about do I want to be a technical leader? Do I want to be a people leader? Do I want to be both, right? And sorry, spoiler alert, I still don't know what I think I love the most. But at this point in time, I think I enjoy people leadership. That's kind of how I choose it. A few questions that kind of helped me was, am I energized by solving technical complex problems? The answer was yes, but I'm still working on people leadership. So that's why I said it could be both. Right? And then what was the most recent accomplishment that gave you the most satisfaction? Are you comfortable making decisions that are uncomfortable probably for for the people you work with? Because it is something important for the organization and probably a short-term gain for a long-term win. These are some questions that kind of helped me get to a place where I was like, at this point in time, what is something that feels rewarding to me? And that's how I choose this track. Again, it's going to vary. The answer to these questions is going to vary throughout your career, throughout your life. And that's okay, that's normal, and that's how it's supposed to be, because we all evolve in different directions, and that kind of helps us decide where we want to be. There's also the competency piece of it, right? There's one thing that I aspire to be, like I would really want to go act in a Netflix series, but really am I competent? And do I want to build that competency, because there's limited time, and we really need to make sure we are doing the things that we want to do, right? So that's where competency assessments come into picture. This is a set picture, but this is one of the frameworks that I really like, where you can have like the different dimensions of like what you work on, and then you can try to understand, do a self-assessment around like, where do my competencies live today, and where are areas of growth. And this would not just help you understand where you are with your competencies, it would also help you understand when you drive a project, what are the other additive competencies that you need from other people that you could work with to get a project from A to B or like find a destination. Right? So I think this is a really good framework. I've added the link to it. They have a lot of them. This is not particularly security. It's not like custom to security. But again, right, like there can't be something custom to all of our fields. So this is something that you could work off and modify to how you want it and what are things you're working on. So, okay. Oh, my slides are not in the right place, so we'll go back to that. Failure 1, to learn to check your slides before you talk. What makes one a senior staff, principal, insert any title, engineering, engineer or a manager, right? Like we see these titles, they're there for a reason, levels are there for a reason. While I don't agree that that means growth necessarily, that's one metric of growth as well, right? So generally, any title talks about the scope of impact your work has. And it combines a couple of things, right? Like it could be, and that requires your technical expertise, that requires ownership skills, that requires like emotional intelligence. All of these together help you accomplish what you do. And what impact that has is what these titles are loosely based off. So let's say you're someone who's working on a particular app providing reviews, right? The scope of impact of you being able to secure is just this app. So that's the scope of impact. And these are like just some definitions I've pulled out from a generic standpoint. These don't mean the same thing in every company, and the context of it may differ. But overall, right, like generally when they say someone's a senior, they probably lead like some of the complex projects. And their scope of work would impact teams or multiple teams as such. Maybe let me pick an example. Let's say you're managing some reviews. We were talking about reviews for an app, right? But you partner with like one part of the organization, and let's say that's just payments, and you work with payments for like their 5 apps. You help them secure it, and your scope of impact has increased to that payment org because you see similarities there, and you're like, okay, can we optimize and make this better, more secure? And this is the risk we can accept, right? So you're providing more context. You're kind of trying to identify how this payments team can do their design security. Someone who's a staff, or a title that's similar to a staff, their scope of impact may be broader than that, like at an org level. They could probably be identifying what does identity mean for all of our organization. How does like gaming, let's say at Netflix, work, right? How does studio work? How does like payments work? And put any other company, let's say it's a SaaS company, how does it work with like our customer management system versus like how does it work with our HR management system, right? So they are thinking more about like the next level of complex problems that they are trying to solve for the whole organization. So that's their sphere of impact, right? And someone who's a principal distinguished, I don't know, even staff sometimes as the same title is more around like they're probably industry leaders who are trying to shape how we think about security. When we had GDPR, what did it mean for us to actually implement GDPR? We still have those cookies that we just click without thinking because that was the design that a lot of companies went with. And there's so many people who are trying to challenge that and change that. Or with WebAuthn, right? Like passwords are hard to remember. Great password managers are a patch. And encouraging like password policies was a thing that someone did. But now we have like a lot of industry leaders who are trying to identify how do we move the needle from this point to the next point then, right? So they could be industry leaders and their sphere of impact could be like the whole company setting policies or for the industry as well. So that's kind of what levels or titles are trying to define with growth, but again, it's a no size fits all. And I do want to call out that, just getting a title is not growth. Having these larger spheres of impact in the path you choose is what is growth. So to do all of these, we need technical expertise, we need the EQ part of it, and we also need like ownership. So let's talk a little bit about it. Technical expertise, right? Now, technical expertise talks about both depth and breadth. It's important for us, especially in the world of security, to keep ourselves updated about the latest things that's going on. What are the new things? Let's say we start using, Kubernetes for something that was new a few years ago, right? So what does security mean? So that's the piece of it. And your technical depth could like come from either taking courses, doing things hands-on, whatever your learning style is. From a breadth perspective, I think it is thinking more about like how are these systems connected? Like how do we go about and have this broader impact? We talk a lot about like scaling security, right? Like how do we find and identify a problem, look at like repeated patterns, and how can we think about like eliminating one whole class of like, let's say, vulnerabilities for this case and reducing risk. Right? So that's the technical expertise aspect of it. I think there's a lot of talks, there's a lot of workshops, there's a lot of resources for technical expertise. One of the things I want to call out is no single person is supposed to and will have all of the technical expertise. So make sure that you're not burning yourself out trying to get all of the technical expertise, because that's not how even, the organization or teams or the world is designed to be. We are supposed to like lean on each other to, be additive and take those skill sets from other folks and work together as teams to achieve like risk reduction in this case. I lost my ownership slide before, so let me talk about ownership and then go to ownership. Right. So when I say ownership, what is ownership? Especially as a hiring manager, one of the things that I have reflected on is this is the quality that is important for almost everyone. Ownership is basically the ability to drive a project end to end and have accountability about the outcomes. I will focus on the word drive here. What does it mean? While you own the decisions of the project, what we are looking at is for you to identify the right stakeholders, align in the right direction with them, understand what they think about the project, gather that dissent, work on areas that your strength is in, divide them into tracks, make sure that these are all going in the right direction, and finally own the outcome of this project. It could include metrics, what's the success criteria, what did we learn from it. So driving things end to end is something that we look for at every level with every candidate, because that's one of the core skills you have. And again, right, like as I mentioned before, you don't have to do everything. You have to like leverage all the skills that exist, so collectively we can come up with a beautiful final product. And that's where ownership skills are very important. It's something that you could develop in your own scope of work. There are organization borders. There's always like a bunch of obstacles with our careers, with the work we do. But even with your scope of work, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to own it, identify areas where someone else could come and enrich it and make it better. So maybe you can start small at where you are and try to like maybe ask for mentorship or like sponsorship from folks who may be like at a really senior level, they're leaders, that's the path you want to take maybe. And you could talk to them and be like, hey, I want to work on ownership. What's the track that I could take off from your thing? And most of the times the answers being yes, these are some things that I think your scope of work. So there's a lot of opportunity to like, improve your ownership skills and have those strong ownership skills to help you grow your career, because as you own these projects, your sphere of impact increases, and that's what we are looking at. Emotional intelligence or emotional. There were amazing talks yesterday about that. Rianne spoke about that as well. So the emotional intelligence includes like communication, collaboration, everything that is so key for all of us to work together and get to a good outcome. Why is emotional intelligence important? We're all humans working with other humans, and yes, of course, some bots and machines, right? So it's really important that we understand, especially in security, we are mostly like externally facing teams, right? Like we talk to other engineering bots, we talk to PR, we talk to legal, we talk to folks who come from different backgrounds with different levels of skills, and it's important that we are able to communicate clearly and concisely. What are we trying to get to them when we are talking about a risk, when we are talking about a project, or when we are just making a case for like why is security important and why does this report need to be disclosed responsibly to the external world, to your PR team or your legal team and such, right? So communication and collaboration come in every step of your work, and that's something that is key to success. So how can you get to this, right? These are a lot of things subjective to our own experiences, and there's a lot like that we would invest on in growing on these programs. How can we do that collectively, right? So I think be curious. Curiosity is something that helps us think more creatively about a problem, like try to understand the different things that are around you. But let's say we are focusing on an application that we're working on, right? Like, how can you be curious and think about, okay, I was supposed to pen test this, or like I was supposed to review this, or I was supposed to write a detection for this. But what would it mean for those A, B, and C that may be connected to this, right? So I think be curious and giving yourself the space to think, which is also equally important, really helps you get to the next level. Seek mentorship inside and outside the company. When you seek mentorship inside, there are opportunities where you can, like I said, you can talk to one of the technical leaders on your in your organization and be like, can I take something off your plate? Could you help mentor me to get this right? There's a ton of help that you get, and there's a lot of information that you get. There's a lot of access that you get, which shouldn't be downplayed either, into places that you may not have before because of the scope of your work. So it also builds advocacy. Tomorrow when someone's like, oh, you know what, this person wants to take up this project, they're like, oh, I can advocate for them because they actually worked on something and I felt it was a great quality. And advocacy is really important as well. Talking about mentors outside, I think it's helpful to understand what's going on in the industry. And I think there was a talk about what is the market? It helps you understand where you are, what are you doing, and what can you do better. Right? So I think those are also some factors that would help you with external mentorship. Talking to other people and getting that external mentorship as well. Advocacy, something we call feedback, is a gift. I've heard this 100 times before, but when it actually got meaning was when I got constructive feedback in a way that I could understand and actually get some actions out of. While we don't control how a person gives feedback, we can absolutely help them, guide them into giving us useful feedback. Ask questions. Okay, you said I should improve my communication. What do you mean exactly? Is it the grammar aspect of it? Is it the language aspect of it? Or is it more about not being able to be concise and not getting the point across? Ask them pointed questions around what are you talking about when you say make the communication better? Right? And I think that would give you a fair idea about what's exactly something that I need to improve. And I have really, really gotten the benefit of getting specific feedback by asking these questions and helping guide them, give me the right feedback. And then you can build an action plan. Work with people you think do really well in that part, and it doesn't have to be the person who gave you feedback, right? Let's say you really feel like there's someone on your team or on another team or completely related on PR or legal that you enjoy speaking to, and you always feel like they have a way with their words that you understand them. You could just check with them saying, hey, I'm improving on this. Can you help me identify what are areas that I'm not doing well when we have our interactions, right? So people most of the time really, really happy to help when you go ask for a specific thing versus telling them, oh, I'm improving my communication, let me know. Right? Similarly, it's not useful for them. So make sure to ask for feedback, guide the feedback so you can extract the right thing out of it to understand how to make action. Most importantly, take breaks, unwind, take vacations. I did this mistake. I still do it sometimes. Full disclosure is like of not taking vacations, feeling like I need to be constantly on, and it has led to burnout a lot of times. There's a lot of talks. Any conference, just pull up like conferences. This, I guess, this until now, this year, 2023, and you find so many talks about like burnout and how it's a thing in our industry, right? And that's for a reason. It's hard to catch up with security, but you don't have to catch up. And for that to settle in my mind and be like, okay, I'm going to unwind, I'm going to relax. It's important for me to be able to, do life better, do security better, since we're talking about our career, is something that I realized really well. So plan for vacations the way you would plan for work, and make sure you set like if you're my kind of a person, set up quarterly goals to actually have a vacation and make that a part of your life. What are the takeaways really? All I want to get to is there's not a ladder, there's just different pathways, and choose what you like, what you think you can excel in, and what you want to excel in. Take breaks, vacations, spark your creativity, go for your hobbies. All of us bring a unique perspective because all of our lives are unique and different. And please double down on that by working on the things that you love outside of security. And honestly, all of that energy does come back when you're trying to assess competencies in all dimensions. There are some people on the team who could be principal engineers or whatever the XYZ title, who are great at EQ, cross collaboration, and there could be someone who can deep dive into complex technical problems and solve it. And both are equally important. So find your path and understand your competencies, work with your manager, work with your peers, work with people you know in the industry to help you identify what are growth areas and where are you with the competency. And also, right, it's important to strengthen your strengths and not always think of areas of growth to be the place where you grow. Because you have other people who are great at those competencies and you could make a great team together. Communication, collaboration, decision making, they are vital to success. Try to leverage opportunities within your organization, outside your organizations, maybe in conferences like this, workshops like this, to build those things and fine-tune and make it better. Mentorship and sponsorship is really, really important. And I would like to say that please reach out. It's hard sometimes to drive mentorship conversations, and I have experienced that too. So maybe make it a larger cadence, maybe meet once in a quarter, or just have your own board, right? So have a bunch of people that you trust in, you could talk to, and reach out to them for any decisions you're making. Or if you want someone to give you a second opinion about something, reach out to them, ask for mentorship, ask for advocacy, and that's gonna take you a really, really long way in your career path. That's mostly what I had. Any questions, any thoughts? And that's my mentor, and her advocacy helped me be here, so thank you, Swati. Any questions? Yes.
What is the difference between mentorship and sponsorship?
So mentorship, that's a great question. Mentorship is basically where you go to someone and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to be mentored. So they're helping you grow. Right? They're helping you grow by giving you the right tools there, by helping you bounce ideas and your decision making and stuff. So that's the mentorship part of it. Advocacy is more about advocating you. Sponsorship or advocacy is more about advocating April. You're amazing. She worked with me on this project, and this project went really well. So I believe in her ability to deliver on communication, technical depth, and technical. I'm just making this up. Technical depth, communication, and let's say collaboration, right? So someone whom you work with advocate for you. That, hey, April's awesome, I think she should be there. So that's advocacy and this is mentoring. And that the same person can do both, right? So, yeah, but that's a good question. Right? Any other questions?
About building the technical expertise. And often I find that based on the projects you get at your workplace, right? And it so happens that if the business is not shifting or your org is not shifting quickly, you are not able to make those strides in skill building as you wish to. And then comes the time when you want to make that shift in your career and you look for opportunities outside and you find yourself like, hey, I just know ABC, but the rest of the world wants A, B, C, D, E, F. Right? What is your guidance on that? And now this is not just specifically to for engineers or individual contributors. It's applicable even to anyone, like management.
So that's a very real world question. And that's something that even I have experienced, and I'm sure most of us do, right? So the organizational obstacles was not something I touched upon a lot. I just made a mention. So there's always times where, like you said, it's hard. You might go to the technical leader. You might be like, okay, I'm going to work on projects, but this is all the business is doing. That's where the art of saying no comes into picture, right? That's what I was talking about with people. Sometimes one of the things that I think is helpful is every year, right? I think it helps to interview or understand what's going on outside. You could look at the job descriptions if you want to be like passively, like kind of look at what are people looking for, what are like organizations looking for my role. That helps. Again, talking to external industry folks helps you understand and not let you stagnate for a longer time than it is. We all take time to realize, right? And there's also like opportunities to like learn outside of your job. So attending conferences and workshops also help you. Well, it wouldn't give the experience, as you mentioned, right? At least it gives you some familiarity and helps you like self-drive your career. So I think these are some things that I have done. Also, going and interviewing is never a wrong choice. I think that will help you understand your gaps a lot more than any of all of these things. And it's okay to interview every once a year because you are the owner of your growth and your career. Right? It's not the company. Remember, you're in the driving seat. And I think interviews are the best indicator, but life happens and we cannot all interview. We are not all built the same way. So at that point, looking at job descriptions, talking to other people in the industry, talking to people who have just moved to different like roles, right? I think those are also some things that I've had. You had something to say.
Yes, I want to ask, what are your thoughts on moving right now because of the industry?
I understand.
So volatile and things like that.
It's unfortunate right now, the market that we are in.
Right.
So this may not be a time. This might be another external factor that is stagnating a couple of our folks' careers, right? So while we can't control the market, I think there are other things we could do is where we can volunteer in some places where we meet different people. For instance, DFC right? Like volunteering here might have, I mean, even attending here, right? That would give you access to talking to people, at least to know where, be lacking, where what are the skills that are in the market right now and hard to find or like not available in our own organization. So I think that's one way of doing it. But we are not trying to solve for everything. At some point, there, like I said, right, like life happens as well. So you could be passive and for a year and a half, you're stagnated, but you don't have the capacity because something else is going on in the business. Just optimize for that at that point. And right now with the market, it's really hard. So all we can do is try to do these different things because I think hustling, right, comes back to hustling where you're like, I'm trying to do these 10 things and one day it's all going to like help me out. Like the connections you make, right? And things we learn from each other. So yeah, not a great answer, I guess, but that's what I would think of in marketing. That's what I'm doing right now. Any other questions? Yes.
You talked about mentorship. You actually said it's what easier. Yeah. A lot of people hesitate to ask that first question. How do you go about it? And also, like, I feel like when you say, hey, somebody be my mentor, it feels like a big weight on that person. And it's also very it's unclear. What does that mean? What do you do like that?
That's a great question, Raji. I feel like I have gone between, I think a lot of people have spoken to, including me. I kind of shied away from mentorship because I felt it needs to be structured. I think I went into mentorship thinking it should be structured. I should always have a recurring session. I should always make sure like I have something to discuss for that day. And I used to be this person who just tried to like take a bunch of topics and like dump it into the doc that morning because I needed to have a call with my mentor, right? So what I've realized over time is two things, right? One of it you asked was more about the mentor and the mentee as well. So I'll cover the mentee and go to the mentor. So from a mentee's perspective, I think we're trying to build a connection. Like I said, we're humans talking to humans, right? So understand who you're talking to, have casual conversations to build that connection so they know what are your values, what are their values, and you kind of know them as a person for them to be able to like answer any questions you may have or discuss about like different topics. So that kind of takes off the pedestal of like, we need to have 3 topics and we need to complete it in 30 minutes. It's not a meeting with an agenda. I mean, it needs to have some agenda, I guess, but not a meeting with an agenda. For the mentor, set the expectation that, hey, why are you asking them to mentor? Comes back to reflection, right? Why are you asking them versus someone else for mentorship? Do you value something that they do which you want to develop and grow in? Or you just appreciate their perspective, right? So share that in the initial conversation and ask them how much they are available because they have their career, their life, their mean, probably they are a mentor to some, but I mean, they are the mentee for someone else as well, right? So they are also trying to navigate their career. So identify what specifically you want to talk to them and let them know and ask them about, like, how much time are you available for? I think I might need to talk to you once in, like, let's say 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, or whenever I have questions, is it okay if I shoot that message and you can respond to me later? So take the pressure off each person to make it like extremely organized, extremely agenda driven, and trying to have like a really strong cadence and asking too much from them, right? Like, I want an hour every week. No, that's not going to happen. I don't have an hour per week for myself anymore. So I think those are some things, because when you go to how to ask mentorship, when I was in school, like, oh, you should ask your mentor, you should make sure you have things on your agenda. I said, great, but I don't have things on my agenda every 4 weeks, right? So I think it's just help build that casual relationship with my mentors. Like I said, it's like a boardroom. I just like shoot messages. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Is this the right thing? Can I get a gotcha? So things like that. And you will find your match. It's like dating, I guess, right? Like, mentorship is also like dating. Like, you talk to people, you connect with people. With some you connect more, with some you connect less, and over time, with patience, perseverance, I think you end up at a place where you have these 4 people that you can connect with. And that helps.
Should the mentors be in the same domain you're working in? Would you recommend the mentors to be in the same domain, or any benefits?
Not at all. I think, no, not at all. I think you're limiting yourself by having mentors in the same domain, mentors only in the same domain. I feel like there's so much to learn, there's so much to get different perspectives on. I think it comes back to diversity, right? Like, the more diverse the folks you talk to are from an industry, from like backgrounds, and all the various factors that you could put in. I think you get so many different perspectives. So it's important that you're not always like talking to people like you or people in the same field like you. It's important to, of course, do that as well, but also it really, really helps to have, like, it's similar to having a diverse team, right? Like, this is your diverse team. Make your decisions and that's it. Questions? I think we should go for lunch.